am so excited to have a good old natter and catch up with the incredible Mars Lord. Mars is a coach and birth activist, a triple award-winning doula, mentor, educator and coach with over 15 years experience. Mars is in high demand both in the UK and across the world as a speaker and trainer. Mars created Abuela Doulas, a doula preparation course primarily, but not exclusively, for Black and Brown women, and is the founder of the BLA Scholarship, Black Lives Abuela. This scholarship is to help Black women who wish to become doulas to train and not be held back by socioeconomic disadvantage. She is an inclusion consultant to several large companies, causing them to look deep into their systemic and structural racism and make proper change. Her activism and advocacy for Black and mixed heritage women has seen her speak on all the major news networks. She's recently moved into the life coach space as well, and to be honest, she has been one of the most significant and integral people in my life because she was my doula when I had both my boys, and to be honest, she's the first person I call when I pee on that stick. Mars, it is such a joy to have you here. You know, you were literally one of the first people I thought about for this because you are essential to my life, but whenever I've hit a stumbling roadblock, it's always you that is the person that kind of brings me out. So I want to find out about you and your version. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little sad, but I'm good today.
Why are you sad?
Oh, I'm sad because I've just been reflecting on racism and police brutality and things because of the series of short films I've been watching, Small Acts by Steve McQueen. And so it's just made me feel a bit sad today.
Obviously your life always is focused right now on this activism and talking about this stuff. Mm-hmm. But it does make you sad, obviously. What do you do on a day-to-day basis then? I mean, let's jump straight in to try and protect yourself from feeling low and miserable.
Oh, I think it's important to have that moment of feeling sad and not just brush it away and pretend it doesn't exist. Because otherwise it then comes back and revisits you and it gets worse and it gets worse. So I might just sort of sit with it for a while. I'm not talking about going into a pity party, but just sitting with it and acknowledging that it's there and then deciding what I want to do about it. And sometimes what I want to do about it is turn up the music really loud and have a dance party for one. It's always better to have a dance party for one because then no one's treading on your toes or saying, I don't like this song. And so you just get on with having a dance party for one. Or I'll call up some friends. Pre-COVID, I would call up friends and go out with them. Post-COVID, I call them up and sometimes we go out. And I mean, how do you socially distance when you really just want to have a huge laugh and a hug?
And a cuddle, right?
Yeah.
That's the lack of touch when probably you need a cuddle. Look, this year has been a real kind of loud klaxon for the problem of racism, hasn't it? But I guess for you, you're thinking, this is every year, this is not just this year. So how have you navigated your life with it and keeping positive and upbeat and keeping going?
Well, you know, as a Black woman, unapologetically Black, it's not something I can avoid, it's not something I can rationalise, because really, how people don't just love people, or maybe apart from the dicks, I don't understand. We do something that's called code switching. So we talk one way in a mixed group, so particularly white friends, etc. And then when we're on our own, we don't talk about white people at all, we just relax and breathe and just be. So you just learn to navigate. You know what you can say where and when. But sometimes...
But what do you mean by that? As in
code switching or...
What do you speak differently
I'll give you an example. So I was talking to a group of people during a breastfeeding organisation and I was talking to them. And as I started to talk about the fact that Black women are 5 times more likely and rising than white women to die in the perinatal period, this woman started to cry. And so I said, right, we're going to stop. I said, because you're crying and censoring yourself and your pain when Black women are over here dying. So now everyone in the room is more concerned about you and your tears and your discomfort and your upset than the fact that Black women are dying at such rates. I've lived in my discomfort for 53 years. I think you can live in yours for an hour.
But obviously, I mean, I wasn't there and devil's out, but she's not trying to, I assume, put put it on her, get the attention, get the sympathy?
No, but
Was it a visceral reaction and she...
No, sorry, I should be kinder. No, she just sat there and she's crying, and now everyone is thinking, I need to make sure that she's all right, because the fact that a white woman is crying and needs to be comforted is far more important than black women dying at such high rates. And so it's when you hear these things, instead of censoring yourself and your emotions in the horror of what you're seeing or hearing, perhaps pause a moment and stay present and stay listening and focused into what they're saying rather than how it makes you feel.
Right.
Because actually, the hearing of these stories, the seeing of something like the murder of George Floyd over 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it's like, stop making it about you. Oh my God, this is awful, this is horrible, this is dreadful. So that's all about you and your emotion. That's not, this thing has happened to this man.
So,
and we need to recognise that this thing has happened to this man, and let's do something rather than sitting there saying, well, that's terrible. And the other thing that we do is when we sit there and weep about it, well, I don't do things like that, so it's okay.
Right.
And then we forget the thing that has made us upset, the thing that has, made us weep. Sometimes just pause and say, I'm going to stay present in this moment. Then take your tears away somewhere else.
But equally, if there was no reaction, would that also be wrong? Like if there was no emotion or kind of...
Well, you can show emotion, but
not bawling in front of everyone. That's not a helpful emotion to show there and then, which I totally recognise.
Because that actually is about, this is how I'm feeling about this incident. And I wouldn't mind, but I hadn't even gotten deep into it.
To the juicy part.
To the juicy part. Though, that said, I don't do black trauma porn, which is, but tell me how that happens. Tell me what happens. Give me examples of that happening. It's like, not being funny, Google or any other search engine is your friend, right?
Yeah.
So you can find out these things. You know these things are happening. You hear these things are happening. You see these things are happening. And what happens with the murder of George Floyd is quite simply the wider white society suddenly shifted their gaze for a moment and said, oh, God, oh, that's awful. Oh, that's terrible. And so you listen to the sort of media outlets, you listen to the news. So the Black Lives Matter moment is not a moment. It's never been a moment. Black Lives Matter didn't occur because of what happened with George Floyd. What happened is that the wider society looked and went, oh my goodness, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter have been going for the longest amount of time. Civil rights have been happening for the longest moment in time. It's always been happening. And things don't really change. There's a moment of, oh my God, this is awful, this is terrible, and the knee-jerk reaction, and then we all sit back down again and say, oh, by the way, what are you getting for Christmas? Because now we've moved several months on from George. But whilst wider society can do that, me, my family, my children, we still have to live it. I still have to live with the fact that my son can be and is and has been pushed up against the wall by police because he fits the description. Well, what's the description? Well, there was a young black man, okay. You hear there was a young white man. Do you grab every young white man you see and throw him up against the wall to question him? So we live with this every day.
But how do you live with this? Because,
Because it happens.
So what do you do to kind of tell your children to feel like life is still worth living? You don't need to fear living and pursuing your dreams and doing things you want to do and having family.
We tell them that.
So I met you as my doula, and you are the centre of calm positivity for me. But are you that person deep down?
I am for the most part, because look, I refuse to bash my head and get a bloodied head against a brick wall with people that don't want to engage in the conversation. They don't want to engage with the conversation. That's their issue, that's their problem. Yes, it's going to affect my life, but actually it only affects my life emotionally as much as I let it.
And how do you protect yourself then?
I hang out with my black friends and we just play some music and have some food and we just laugh, because everyone everywhere has something to laugh about. There's a Jewish man who wrote about happiness whilst being in a concentration camp and just taking those moments.
So that's like the essence of gratitude. Like whatever, you can always find something, as you say, to be happy about, grateful for, find the good. I mean, to find it in a concentration camp seems a stretch, but if you could, it's for your own inner peace to do that.
And everyone everywhere, no matter what the situation they're in, there are little pockets of happiness that you can take. But you see...
So wait, you. Wine, food, your people, music, that's your happiness.
Yeah, reading a really good book. Oh, and
Okay,
my most favourite thing, which is watching fictional serial killers. Nothing gets the oxytocin rising so much as watching someone eviscerate someone else on
Really?
screen. I know.
What, like a Dexter? Or what's that one with James...
I'm watching The Prodigal Son at the moment, which is bringing me great joy.
The Fool, is that one?
I haven't watched the
Oh, I've heard that's fantastic.
But I like reading about them as well.
Really?
Karen Slaughter, she's an incredible author.
So, sorry,
she's
this is
very
like your...
visceral.
This is like your little, like, secret fetish.
Well,
serial
I was
killing.
reading at your births.
Serial killer stuff. I mean, that's not even on my list here.
But fictional.
Fictional. Oh, right. Why? Why is that? Well, surely it all has to come from somewhere. It's informed by something.
But real life is too real. And I already live in a very real life, so I need to just be transported into
Okay, so
else.
that's something too. Transportation. Like, it's such a different world that really... And is that when you, like, switch off from your reality often, I guess?
I hope so. But it'd be a bit much if I'm like, oh, let me go practice this eviscerating of someone on the street, you know.
But so fictional serial killers, that's brilliant. I didn't even know that.
And the female authors are the best ones because they really get deep with the details.
So psychology, oxytocin, that's like, are you very cerebral anyway? I know in birth it's like the complete opposite of what you should be.
I think I probably am. I don't. When you say that you should be, are you talking about the birthing person being out of
So this is what I'm saying. For me, yeah, well, I know you in a birthing capacity, and even your activism and advocacy, I guess for me, I see it in the birthing world. But now you've transcended into also the real world. But are women still your focus of your work?
I love women.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be a shit doula if I didn't love women. But in the same way, this is why I think when you find yourself with bad care, the people who are doing that care, they clearly don't love other people.
People, women.
And if we're talking about birth, they're not loving women and birthing.
For those that don't know, and I count myself in this, what is a doula? I have you, I love you, I need you, but I don't know what the definition of you is.
A doula is your guide through pregnancy and birth, but unlike the book, we tend to adapt for our different clients. So, in short, a professional birth companion. So my mum thinks that people are really strange because she said, "So what? You do nothing?" Because I was trying to explain to her that most of my work is done before you go into labour. So that's the talking about your choices, the reminding you of options, reminding you of your rights, what you can decline during your journey, and how you want it to be. And then, you go into labour and I sit back, if there's time with my book, having a read whilst Zeb's
for
there.
For my first 4 days,
you
just get through a good tome here because you're taking so bloody long.
Yeah. And then, but with that ear just listening for if you need me. So when there's a panic in your breath or your sound, then I'm there to just remind you that it's okay. I'm there for your partner, for your husband to say, it's okay. So you don't worry what's going on with your partner because I'm keeping an eye on both of you. And I'm just protecting your space to birth, And so I suppose a professional birth companion who's there to support you emotionally, physically and spiritually. So we don't do anything medical or clinical, that's what midwives are for. And I was training some doulas earlier this week and I said, your role is just be there, be that safe space, hold that space. You're not there to be doing lots of things. You've got lots of people that are doing lots of things. And then I really freaked them out and I said, it's got nothing to do with the baby. They're like, what?
What?
I said, it's got nothing to do with the baby. My role isn't to look out for your babies. My role is to look out for you and your partner so that you can have the best birth experience that you can.
And by the way, both of them, I mean, you are literally, I said this to you, and you wanted you because you are the doula of doulas. You are. I watched a speech you gave on like your website when I was like looking for doulas and burst into tears. I was like, I need Mars by my side.
I know you emailed me saying, I'm watching you now and I'm crying.
But you
I confess I had a little chuckle about that.
Cheers. You are, so you hold people's space, you can be in the moment. And are you like that in your own life then? Because you facilitate it for countless women.
I am, and I know who to call when I can't be.
So people's integral to your well-being. Your people.
Yeah, but was it John Donne, No Man is an Island?
Yeah.
You know, that's why COVID is hard, because you lose the touch and you lose the connection with people. But yeah, I have people that I have very specific people that I call to hold my space and just say, okay, I need to cry now, and I'm probably not going to cry because you know I don't like to cry. But so I just need you to hold my space, and if I cry, I need you to not say, "Are you all right?" I need you to just bloody be there and let me be in the space.
But you know what you need and what you want. You
can. I am 53,
right?
And I have been practicing this for a rather long time.
So you kind of practice the things people advise you to practice, but do you do that inherently, or have you really worked at like?
No, I think I mostly do it inherently, but. That, I suppose, takes us back to the being black. You just have to adapt to survive and find ways to protect yourself. So I know that I am more prone to hypertension, high blood pressure. In fact, I have hypertension because of the microaggressions that go on every day. I think it's important to laugh, and I've always said I'd rather laugh than sit and cry about something. Just have my moment, have my tears, and then find something that makes me laugh or makes me laugh. And I love people, so it's really hard to be down when you love people, because, yeah, you'll meet a dickhead, but then you'll meet about a dozen people that are really lovely.
Yeah. Speaking of dickheads, but you were married and now divorced.
I am.
That's a really big life upheaval, you know, and not the ones you go for. You have 5 children with your ex-partner.
Thank you for clarifying that, because as a black woman, whenever I tell people I have 5 children, the first question is, are they with the same father?
Genuinely, that's the first.
Right. And this is probably my biggest moment of not going to prison. Was when.
Wow, is that a thing? I didn't know, right? Okay, fine.
With me.
Yeah.
This is what keeps me level, thinking, yeah, I don't think that person's worth going to prison for. Past client, on hearing that I had 5 children and that I was no longer with my husband, said, but of course, those men always have lots of children and always just desert you and abandon you. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, you think he's black. So I said, well, you know, some people are just dicks, really, aren't they? And I said, and his family never liked me. She said, why didn't his family like you? I said, I was too dark. Oh, it was a beautiful moment as her face drained with colour. And she said, he's white. Because that's the narrative that black men are, you know, dropping their seeds everywhere and deserting women. And that black women are fecund and just produce lots and lots of babies all the time. And it's a completely wrong narrative, but it's a narrative that's continually played out. But that was my biggest moment of how not to kill someone and go to prison.
But you killed her with words. Like you
I simply just told her the truth.
True.
Which was that his family didn't like me because my skin was too dark, and let her do her own work within herself. And then I did go home and phone my Rebecca's go, you will not believe what I just heard.
So you're obviously very passionate, vocal, you're an advocate in activism.
Me, I'm shy, Liv.
Yeah, you're shy as hiring all up, but you fell in love with a white guy. Did that cause kind of internal debate in your own head? Like, had you always wanted were you open-minded at who you'd fall in love with, or?
Yes, I was. If I went back in time, I would probably go for a black guy. Because then you don't have to navigate through the different cultural references. You can just jump up and do the electric slide without someone going, what are you doing? Teach me how to do that. What is that? Whatever. You know, really, really deep stuff. I don't know. I mean, it played out in different parts in our relationship because he's one, a product of his upbringing, and two, a product of the society in which we live in. And so he held many of the narratives.
Was it also encouraged by your relationship? Did that help play a part?
I'm a terrible compartmentalizer.
Ah.
I just whacked that into a box and didn't think about it.
That happens. That's life.
But that, I think, is just about me coming into myself and knowing who I am, because we were quite young when we got married.
Right.
And that's about me coming into myself. And the reason why I do the work that I do is because I love people. I don't want to see my cousins, my sisters, my mothers, my aunts, my daughters, my children dying in childbirth. So it's really important to me that the work is done, and that it's more than just talking about it. It's about seeing actual action points, which is why when that woman, for example, was crying in the middle of me talking, so I haven't got time for that. Take that somewhere else and deal with that, because at the moment the issue is this. And for me, it's about making sure that people continue the work, so that it's not, as the media so nicely coined it, a moment, because this isn't a moment, it's a moment in a woman's life, in a person's life. But if you have a good birth, do you know you heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations back?
I can believe that, because birth trauma, you see the impact and the bonding, and then the hormones, it makes so much sense.
I spend so much time debriefing grandmothers about their birth experiences, having seen their child have a good birth experience. And a good birth experience doesn't mean that they're giving birth with a choir of angels in a field. It could be an emergency cesarean, it could be a planned cesarean, but because they've made informed choices. So, I don't know, a lot of who I am just came about by me just making decisions and believing in myself.
Does being in a birth environment and seeing life come in remind you that life is good, it's pure?
Just incredible.
Is it for you too? And did you always want to be involved in the birthing world? No. Right? So how did you get into it?
Women, babies, hospitals, no thank you. And actually that was because I'm stubborn. So when I was 16, I sat in front of the careers officer in school. This was back in the 80s, the 1980s, people, please, let's not be rude. And the careers officer asked me what I wanted to do. Now, I was arguably one of the cleverest in my cohort, right?
I think you're incredibly bright.
And I said, I want to go to Oxford and read English. And she burst out laughing and said, girls like you shouldn't go to university, much less Oxford. Girls like you become nurses.
Wow.
And this is why I know that I changed, because it crushed 16-year-old me, but it wouldn't have crushed 25-year-old me. And so I sort of just stepped back from everything. But then when I was pregnant with the children, I suddenly thought, I want my bloody literature degree. I'm going to get, so I sort of signed up with the Open University, and by the time the twins were 2, I graduated.
Wow.
No, actually I think they were 5 when I graduated, because I had to take a couple of courses.
You are a bookworm as well. Like, whenever I've known you, it's always, as you said, like in
I've
the
got
birth
2
room.
in my bag now.
Like, and also, like, it's almost like wonderful. We're in birth. I get to read my book, probably.
Yes.
And you're always in the theatre. You love the arts. You celebrate that stuff.
Pre-COVID days of the theatre.
It'll be back, don't worry. But that is really, is that another life pleasure for you? Does that keep you in the moment? Does that keep you present?
That's a really good bit of self-care for me, to go to the theatre. So every time I book a client, because the theatre is not cheap, and I'm a stalls girl. I'm not sitting up in the class with no one.
You go a lot as well. It's not like a once-a-year thing, is it?
I go as often as I can.
Right.
So I book a client, and I'm like, oh, excellent. Oh, look, David Tennant's in something. Or my favourite actor, I've got 2 favourites on stage, which is Mark Rylance and Andrew Scott. And Andrew Scott was in Hamlet, and I think I booked those tickets a year before he came on. And I remember saying to a client at the time, I will do everything, but I need to back up on this day.
Yeah, this is the day I will not be in a birth.
Because I am not coming.
How many theatre shows have you missed for a birth?
None.
Meant to be.
I had someone go into labour and messaged me in the interval, so I spoke to her, and she said, no, I'm fine just now. I said, okay, because I can come if you want me to come.
Oh, you like
come. And she said, I'll see how and you know me. I'm like, let me know how you're doing in another hour or so. So I came out of the theatre.
Phone on.
Nothing. I kept my phone on vibrate.
Decent. Oh, well, that was decent of you.
Yeah. And I gave her a quick call. She said, I'm fine. Oh, that's great. So I headed home, and 5 minutes from my door, no come. And I said, I was closer to your house from the theatre.
How inconvenient and selfish is that baby choosing its moment?
One night I came out of the theatre and I was going to get something to eat with my friend, and my phone rang, and I was quiet, and she said, come now. And I went, absolutely. So we came out of the theatre. It was about 9:30, 10 o'clock when I got this call. So went off to see her. We were in the hospital at midnight, and she'd given birth at 1:30 in the morning. At 12:30 that night, a second client called and said, I'm in labour, but I'm going to do what you told me, and I'm going to go to bed. I'm like, excellent. Sorted out a backup for her. This one finished giving birth at 1:30 in the morning. So I'm doing my just staying and making sure everything's fine.
Feeding that.
And then at 2:30, Mrs. the hospital, things are really moving. And I said, oh, wow, you might be pleased to know I'm already here.
Yeah, I'll meet you downstairs. I'm already
So I said to the first client, this is normally the time at which I'd leave you, but just in case you see me around, if someone else has gone into labour, so I'll go for them. So then that happened, and I went downstairs, and the midwife said, oh, how nice of you to come down and tell us that she'd given birth. I went, well, that's not why I came down. That couple there, they're my couple. So they came in at, let's see, so that's 1:30, 2:30. So we were in the room next door, so the first couple at 3 o'clock, at 4:30, they'd given birth, and at 6:30, I was at home drinking a glass of wine going, well, that was a big night, wasn't it?
So you got to see your play, do 2 births, and still be home before daybreak.
Yes.
Perfect.
The children hadn't even left the school. I'm like, Mummy loves you, and bye.
And then pass out.
Over the head.
So yeah, you fit a lot in. You do live life to, I mean, literally that is the epitome of living life to the fullest. You got it all done. So do you love life? Do you love living?
I do.
So even with the hardship, the stress, the upset, you know, you still find a way.
Life is a fucker, and life is hugely arbitrary. Someone said that the other day, and that makes far more sense to say that life is arbitrary, not life is unknown or life is short. It's life is arbitrary. I had a friend die last week, not COVID related, and that was a real sucker punch to the gut. And I know that when things like that happen, I need to just retreat for a little while and not be me, not be all the things that I am to others.
Yeah.
You know, and I've actually, I mean, the best thing about being 53 is saying to people, do you know what, just leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you about why I feel the way I feel. I'm just going to go silent for a moment.
Is nature important? I mean, breath.
Yes, but I do like living in the city.
Do you? Yeah, well, you like theatres and restaurants and things. But breath is like so essential for birth, isn't it? And I just wonder for you, if you use the practices of what you tell women to do, just breathe, or that for yourself.
I do. Sometimes I forget, and then when I remember, that's what I do. I love it when I really love the moon.
The moon.
I love it when there's a full moon.
Aussie.
I stand outside and I just breathe, and I just look at it and just think, do you know what? 7 billion people on this planet. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing when I talk to people because it's like they do all the things that you read you should do, but it's almost like you do it inherently without being told. You know, like take a minute, remember that you're just one person, time moves, it will be morning again, like the days continue.
But you know, the biggest lesson that I've learned is to sit in my emotion at the moment. Just let it be. And I think the mistake we make is we keep pushing things aside.
Yeah.
Because if we just get rid of the negative stuff, if I just get rid of the feelings, then I can keep functioning for who?
Yeah, well, it's all for you anyway, isn't it? Yeah. Well, no, but you have children and you have a grandchild.
Well, I do have a co-opted grandbaby, so I like to tell people I have 2 now.
What do you mean? Who's your co-opted?
There's this really beautiful young woman that I met and just fell in love with, and have done some doula training with her. And I introduced her to my daughter because they're both pregnant at the same time.
Nice.
And her baby was born a week after Raphael, my first grandson, which is very important. Everyone knows that I have a grandbaby called Raphael. He's truly good. And and then Kobe was born a week later, and so I'm Nonna.
To both, wow! So finally you've got your own little babies again from when...
Yes, but I don't have to do anything with them. I just, how is it described to me? And it's really true. You get to buy them all the expensive shit you didn't buy your own children. And it doesn't matter if it makes a noise.
Or spoils them, because it's not my problem. You can deal with the tantrum.
I gave them both their first piece of cake. Yes, I am that Nonna. A little bit a chocolate shit for you.
I have a rule on that. If you are so kind as to give your time, your love, your everything to them, you should be able to treat them too and not be on a strict rule schedule. I don't like when mum's like, no, mum, don't do that. You mustn't do that. It's like, let them have fun. And you can treat
Just
the
know
kids.
that I'm noting this for when I do anything.
No, you will not give my children anything. So I guess this is as good a time as any to find out your kind of phrase and mantra you live by, because that's how I like to end this thing. Because I think it's important.
I
Like,
have
what
so many.
do you? Great. So what's one of them then that really comes back again and again in your head when you're like, oh,
Is it going to be
annoying.
your stumbling block or your stepping stone? That comes to me every time.
That's very life coachy.
I know, but I had it before I became a life coach. It's something I've always thought. Am I going to fall down on this thing and let this thing define me, or am I going to stand up on it and define myself?
That is brilliant. And that's something everyone can take something from, because it's true. You have a choice in every moment.
Everything is a choice. Yes, you feel devastated. Yes, this thing is awful, but you have a choice. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to breathe and let it be and then make a decision? So, Stacey Abrams, right, in the States, went up for the Senate, governor of Georgia. Election completely robbed from her. And she said, I borrowed a Jewish tradition. She said, when I lost, I sat shiver for 10 days, and then I got up and thought, what the fuck am I going to do now? And so she set up the Justice for Voting. And that woman, because she stood up and made that thing her stepping stone, is one of the people who's most responsible for turning the state of Georgia so that the votes went towards Biden and Kamala Harris.
So just using what perceived to be a failure or a devastation or a negative and letting it launch you into your next bigger thing.
Sit with it. Accept what it's done. Accept how it makes you feel. And now decide what you're going to do. Are you going to lay crushed? And sometimes you need someone to help you up. But are you going to lay crushed or are you going to get up? So stumbling block or stepping stone.
Love that, Mars. Loved our chat. Love you. Thank you so much for joining me on Live in the Moment. It has been a brilliant moment and you are a breath of fresh air as always. Thank you.
You're welcome.